All right, so we're diving deep into 2050 materials. You're here because you're curious about how they're shaking things up in the construction world using data to make things more sustainable, right?
It's pretty cool, actually. 2050 materials. They're calling themselves the data layer of sustainable construction. And they're not just about a catchy phrase. They're really building something much bigger than just another carbon calculator.
Okay, shooting for the stars then. So, what's that actually look like in practice? I'm seeing EPD everywhere. What is an EPD and why is it so important to their work?
So an EPD, that's an environmental product declaration, is like a nutrition label, but for building materials. It breaks down the entire life cycle of a product's environmental impact from the very beginning, with raw materials to manufacturing, how it's used, even how it's disposed of. 2050 Materials uses EPDs to power this massive database they've built with over 150,000 construction products.
150,000 products. Wow, that's a lot. But how does that kind of scale actually make a difference?
It's huge, honestly, for architects, designers, really anyone in construction. Picture this. You're on a project, you need to pick insulation, right? With 2050 Materials, you're comparing the environmental impact of each choice instantly, side by side. Carbon footprint, how much water is used, recyclability. You have all this info to make a really informed decision.
So it's about giving people the data they need right when they need it. Instead of guessing, relying on gut feelings, they've got solid evidence for their decisions.
Exactly. That's where their data models come in. They take all this raw data spreadsheets, PDFs, even just descriptions on websites, and turn it into a standardized, usable format. They've got these really complex algorithms that can identify, categorize, even fill in missing data points to make sure it's all accurate and consistent.
So it's more than just having tons of data. It's about turning that data into something meaningful and useful, like taking a big pile of ingredients and turning it into an organized, delicious meal.
That's it, exactly. Structure from chaos. And that's what makes the platform so powerful. Speaking of making data useful, let's talk about the tools they've developed, applications to help people at every stage of building.
One that caught my eye was the embodied carbon optimizer. Can you tell me more about that? I like the idea of being able to easily compare the impact of different building designs.
Yeah, it's really useful in those early design stages. Imagine, you're deciding between a commercial building and a residential one. This tool helps you quickly see the carbon footprint potential of each one. And it's not just building types either. You can go down to specific systems, like comparing the impact of different roof types.
So architects who are trying to balance their design vision with environmental responsibility can get instant feedback. That's a powerful tool. It could change how buildings are designed from the very beginning. And what about LCA practitioners? I saw something about a Python-based tool just for them.
Oh, right, 2050 Materials. Hasn't forgotten about the people who really dig into the numbers. Their Python-based benchmark generator lets users create these benchmarks for A1, A3 emissions across different types of products. It's super important for doing those detailed life cycle assessments, those LCAs, giving them a solid base for evaluating the full environmental impact of a building.
So they've got the visual tool for quick early comparisons and then this more detailed one for when you really want to get into the weeds of LCO. I also saw they have a 3D embodied carbon visualizer. That sounds really neat.
It is pretty cool. Data can be dry, especially for clients who might not be super familiar with all these sustainability metrics. This visualizer actually creates a 3D model of a building and shows you the embodied carbon footprint of different parts of it. It's a really powerful way to make the data come to life, show, instead of just tell people about the impact of choosing different materials.
It's a great way to communicate complicated information simply and engagingly. And finally, what about the Tableau dashboard I keep hearing about? It sounds like it's for the data nerds out there.
Totally. The Tableau dashboard, it's like a playground for data lovers. It lets them really explore the 2050 materials database, look for trends and material impacts across continents, by product type, you name it.
So they've got this whole system of tools that cater to different needs and levels of expertise. Well, that wraps up our deep dive into the world of 2050 materials. We hope you've learned something, been inspired even, to help build that brighter, greener future, one data-driven decision at a time. Thanks for joining us.